everyone. I did these beautiful flowers yesterday and I thought like it's the easiest flowers that we can paint. Very simple techniques, and this is the layering flower. This is a very simple technique one, and there's a beautiful rose. So let's see how we can paint these 5 types of flowers today. Let's start. I'm using this 300 GSM book here. I bought this in Amazon. So this is really good paper where you can see it doesn't curl up like it generally a normal paper would. If not 300 GSM, you could also use you could also go until 160 GSM as well. That is also good. That is where in which I did this once in 100 GSM. So these are the ones that I did in 100 GSM. If you see the paper, it's just a bit curled up. So I'm just using the regular brushes here. Basically watercolors is like that. If you start using darker, it will be very, very tricky in the beginning. So I'm just taking very light colors, maybe this one. It's not really about the colors or anything like that. It's really about the consistency, how light I wanted it, how simple I wanted it, kind of thing. So I'm not really going for dark. If you see, I'm keeping on adding water just with the touch of a brush, and then I'm keeping on adding water with this. So I need very, very light so I can add dark shade later. So I wanted my flower to be here, so I wanted it to be outward like this. So to give it a dimension, I'm going to start here. Those are going to be my 5 petals. So I'm going to touch, start any way you want. I'm going to press and then lift. It's still dark if you see, so I'm going to be very gentle with this because I'm going to wash it off later. That's right. That's how light I wanted my petal to be. So I'm gonna pick the paint from this petal itself, and then gonna go for the next one. I'm not gonna dip it in my paint, so just pick it from here. So it will be lighter. I'm gonna pick it from here. I'm gonna pick it. If you see, it's absorbing actually. So. And I'm gonna go for next one. There's no right and wrong in this really. If you see, it's more like how you wanted your flower to be looking like. You can keep editing, but be very gentle with this. As you see, be a bit trickier later, so keep practicing on this one. Then we'll be there. I'm gonna go stretch it out a little bit as if to feel like a real flower does. That's it. That's going to be my first one. I'm gonna add one more flower. Either I can add this next one here, or as if it's halfway with the first one. So I'm just gonna add here. This is not too tricky, or we can definitely improvise in this if you don't want it to be just a couple of presses here. I'm just doing literally presses and then lifting it up. I'm just looking for the shade here really. You can always improvise. Don't worry, because it is always petals, so you should be okay with this. Keep making mistakes, that way you will learn and see. That's the first one. So either we can finish this, or I'll keep going for the next one, so I'll let it dry. We'll have ample time for the other ones. So we'll go similar strokes. If I see, I'm going to take the same color again so that you can see the difference in strokes and everything. I'm going to take same color. I'm going to dilute it a lot. What I'm doing, we'll do one thing. We'll do the layering technique here now. So what I'm doing is, if it is layering technique, we're going to dilute it so much that The first layer hardly have any color in it. Really, it looks like more normal, I should say, maybe. See, just like that. It should not be having any much color at all. Just to have the accuracy, I'm going to paint the opposite side. So if you see, this is too distant, I maintain, so I'm going to paint the opposite side so I know where I have to be going for the next petal, so it doesn't look like a weird flower. But the magic thing about flowers is you can always adjust them, even though if you think you have gone wrong somewhere. Something like this. Don't worry about this distance because we're going to do it by putting extra petals here. So I'm going to do the next flower as well. So I'm going to do a couple of them here. Very, very light color. So we're going to keep increasing the intensity of it. Stretching out, play accordingly. There you go. So that's going to be our first layer. I'll let it dry for now because for the second layer we need some time. It needs to be dried out. In the meanwhile, we'll go for the another style of flower, which is going to be again simple strokes, but it's going to look different. I'm going to load my brush with more of paint. Then I'm going to press. We have to think either inward or outward. See, if you press your flower inward, this is how it's going to look. Inward is stretch and release. If you want your flower this way, it is good, or else you can do it the other side, like this, and then release outward. So either you can have a leaf like this, petal like this, or like this. Since we started with this, let's complete this flower inward. I'm gonna load my brush, more paint, more paint, more paint, and then more water. This is going to be the same inward technique, but if you can see, the petals are much wider, much broader as well. It doesn't have to be this way, but I choose to be this kind of a flower for now because we used very thin method. We used already layering technique, so I wanted it to be one strong color. If you can see, this looks much darker in this paint. See, I'm not gonna put them everywhere because I want to have one more darker layer in that. So be careful while you're loading your brush. If it is too runny, you're gonna keep leaving your dribbles like this. So then immediately pick them up. I think I'm happy with this. If you see, there's layers forming up here. Very tiny and very mild. It's still not dry, so I'm gonna wait for a couple of more minutes and we're gonna go with another flowers. See, you can't form a layer here because I didn't let it dry completely. So we're gonna wait for a couple of more minutes and then we'll come back to that later. We'll draw a couple of buds here. It's too watery. If you see, it's not giving you the texture, rather than it's too runny. I'm gonna pick it from this itself and then keep going. Okay, pick it from this. Pick. Let your brush dry, and if you dab it on a tissue, it will be much easier. Either you can pick it from a tissue as well, that's no problem. I generally do this a lot rather than dabbing it on a tissue, so I find this more interesting. So we'll add a couple of buds here as well. I'm gonna wash my brush. Let's start with leaves now. So I wanted only one leaf here, a big one like this. The same with this time I'm gonna have, it's got loads of water. If you see closely, there's a drop of water there which I don't want it. I'm gonna paint two leaves over there. So load with more water, dilute it, and then press and release. Not two big ones, just a small ones. If you're happy with this, just one dab is enough. If you're not, go with one more. Just like that, maybe. When I practice, I generally keep a real flower and look at from all kinds of directions, so it feels easier that way. So to have to see and then observe how it is looking, or how you wanted your petal to look. So this is how I wanted to look. Basically, I'm using the same technique here, the simple old strokes. If you see, I'm gonna pull a little, press, and then lift carefully just to get that peak of the leaf. If you want more extra color, a bit of dark shade or something like that, you use more color there. The pigment has to be really strong. Make sure it is not too runny, because you don't want it to be a very dark shade and a very light shade. It might look good, but as of now we are beginning, so it is better to be really careful. Once the pigment touches the watercolor paper really strong, it will be very hard for us to get it out of it. So I would really suggest to use it really in a light shade. And then if you want, you can keep editing. Like if you want to have a touch of the darker tone somewhere here and there, then keep ahead with that. There are no right and wrongs again. It's all about painting happily. How you wanted your flowers to look, really. It will give you the darker and then lighter shade. Just like that. Line here. There you go. So let's fill this up. I'm gonna go back to my darker tones of petals. Let's finish this. Now I'm gonna be very careful because this is very strong color and I can't get it back. So there you go. One over there. I'm gonna fill this gap here. I'm going to fill this gap here and over here, one over here and one over here. That's how I wanted it to be. Going back to the next one. This I'll give a couple of more. I'm going to add more color, make it more darker, because we already have used a darker tinge here. So we need to have there you go. I don't know which one looks better for the camera though, so I like both of them how they looks, but this can be used more darker tinges here and there, isn't it? So yeah. After painting a couple of times roses and everything, I realized that how do I wanted my rose to look. My rose, if I'm looking from like this, it needs to have a wider leaf this side, so I'm not going to put too much wider leaves to that side. If you're looking from top, then all sides it needs to have wider ones. So you need to have your objective clear to start. And every time you paint rose, use a wider one. I'm using 10 here and I'm using a lighter one. So I'm gonna dip my brush in water. I'm gonna smudge this part a little bit like this. And smudge this one like this. And go. Grab some more, one more layer, water, and then I'm gonna be adding water to this side. So it's gonna leave that baby pink kind of thing. I'm gonna cover this rose here now. Yeah, just like that. Grab some more water. Just tip of the brush needs to be in the water, and then carefully okay. I'm gonna add more water because if you see it's not really smudged off, so I'm gonna widen this layer here like this. That's it. So it's more like now I can start opening my rose. If you see now it's like a bud I created. I can put one more for the bud layer. Still it's got scope, so I'm gonna put one more for this bud. It dribbled too much if you see, so I'm gonna wash my brush, or else I'm gonna take a clean brush and then I'm gonna absorb the color. See, it's as if the reverse process has happened here. I'm gonna touch just for that line of color there. I'm gonna spread it out later. This is how it's going to be. So it's slowly opening up. If you observe, that's a bit too runny, so you should be very careful. There you go, something like that. And then I'm going to open up this side as well, very widely. So it doesn't look like really it's opening up. So our old technique again, take a new brush, whatever you think is extra, just run it over this one. It's going to grab. Since it is a strong color, it's finding hard to smudge. So be very careful in doing this. You're gonna have something like that. I think I can open this up a little bit more with the color. Though it is dried up, I'm gonna be opening up because okay, something like that. It has to be much light color. Since we are viewing it from top, we wanted everything to be equal by the end of this thing, like this. Touch from this, and I'm gonna add to this, just like this. That's it. There you go. I think I'll leave it at this. Once you're happy with it, let's go back to our browns and then let's start working on our stem. I'm gonna have more of brown. I love roses to have a brown tinge of background, and touching with a bit of green will give a new color. I'm gonna add just 2 leaves here and 1 here. One here, then like this. I'm happy with this, I believe. So let's go fill up with our insides. All I do for the insides is really, you can take a smudgy brush, if not the round one. What I have here is something like this, which is so open. So just to dab it around like this. So either I can use the same color or a different color or some nice yellow. Yeah, I think that looks good for me. I'm not taking too much of water because I don't want it to be runny. I just want the paper to get colored with this particular color. So a little bit of water. Very little actually. I don't want it to be runny at all. I want it to be extremely dry. So I'm going to change my brush to one of those frizzy brushes again. So what do I have here? I have another one with the same frizzy kind of thing. I'm going to open it up a little bit. Touch the brown just to one side and then go after That brown goes around. If you see, that gives a completely different dimension to the flower. And how you put the brown shows which side the flower is more intended to. So this is intended to this side, and this is intended towards this side. We wanted this to be straight, so I'm gonna go around, leave the spots, a center one, clear of color. So there you go. I'm going to take another little bit of color and then okay. The same works for this one. We wanted it to be this side. I'm gonna go around. I hope you can see, and I'm not covering with my hands. Keep adding more leaves here, or maybe you can use another kind of black pen to give it an outline. I generally do outlines, and sometimes I don't do outlines, and I'm pretty happy with how they look now. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you like this. Give a thumbs up if you do, and let me know what you thought about this. Thank you very much.